Good afternoon and welcome to Design Review for Revit. My name is Stan Henne. I'm the Business Development Manager and the low man on the totem pole. And to my left, your right, we have Brian D. Juge, AIA, Autodesk Certified Instructor and Technical Specialist and downright fine architect.
I'm pretty fine.
So today,
so's my hair.
So today we're doing a presentation that kind of got put off for a little while. We had a general design review session a few couple months ago, and we promised we'd do a design review for Revit shortly after, and here it is shortly after. So Brian, let's do a little housekeeping here.
Here we go at your standard webinar console. So
that's it. And you know all the things. The most important one there is the ask questions. You're free to ask questions during the course of the presentation here, and we'll try and get them answered as quickly as we can during the course of things. And so,
and like always, we always do, if you guys can hear us, please raise your hand. You can see the raise your hand icon.
Hit the little raise your hand button there.
There we go. We've got a couple coming up.
If you can hear us or you're paying attention.
Or you're paying attention. All right, we got a couple people out there. Some people have a pulse. That's good. We'll put the hands down.
Yep. Some people want their hands up.
Want their hands up. Well, you can leave them up if you want to. You might get tired. All righty. Now,
all right.
On with the show. So today we are going to be talking about design review or using DWFs or DWFXs. And, you know, I think the first most important question you would ask, Stan, would be, you know, why and what are they?
That's right. Why?
Why?
Where does the data need to come from? What do you need to do with it? Where does it need to go? And what's the fastest and most efficient way to get it there? Exactly.
So here we've got a couple of, well, more than a couple, but some bullet points on some of the reasons for using it. Increase efficiency, obviously, within the product. So once you learn the product tools, how to increase that up with markups and stuff. Also, working with communication. In today's day and age, it's all about communicating with other people, whether that's email or on your iPad in the cloud or doing other things. So there's a lot of things that design review is helpful for doing that. And then that brings us down to the next one is,
well, you know, real quick, Brian, I think the operative line really in the second bullet point there is, even if you don't have the original design software, that's a big one, and design review is a very good tool when somebody doesn't have Revit or whatever, and they want more versatility than a PDF can usually bring them.
Yeah, and it's actually one that I use with my clients all the time, the design review, because you know, a standard homeowner doesn't have Revit and isn't going to go out and buy it by any stretch of the imagination. So it's a way for me to bring the files to them. I can do walkthroughs with them live, and I'll talk about a little bit of it. It's actually pretty easy to pick up and learn with it. And it's a very good way of communication back and forth. They can make their markups and share them with me and their ideas, and I might show one or two examples of what I've gotten from actual clients, which has been quite interesting on how they've used the software itself to get it down there. But it's very easy to use, and they're small files. They're really small files. So even if you're talking a big file like you know, 150 megs, 200 meg file, you're talking that file might be 500 kilobytes. Half a meg, maybe 1 meg big for a big building. So it's really manageable for emailing and communicating and moving that stuff around. Let's see, reduce costs. You know, everybody's talking about eliminating paper and the big thing, going green. So you know, if you're not using a paper environment, we can reduce the costs, which actually go into other aspects too, as far as how to manage the file and stuff like that. And talking about view, you can open in high resolution, as it says, measure areas, surfaces that are inside the file, and a lot of these are both Revit and AutoCAD. So if you watch the one on the AutoCAD one, you're going to have the same tools, that you would have in there, and you'd be able to use that to click on the different elements, the vector elements within the drawing in there. And we've got the markup and annotate, so actually putting physical comments in, but looking at the information that's inside and then being able to comment on it. So what design review, and we'll look at that in a minute, it has inside is I can tell you how many doors immediately are in the project.
Right.
So when you're doing cost estimating, that's going to be something that's really nice to have in there. So if someone's really used to doing a very low-end cost estimating, and from what I've seen, you know, residential architecture, that is pretty common to do. You hand it off to a contractor, and he just wants to know how big, what kind of floor area, as far as, is it a wood floor, a tile floor, what area is going to be, and if you can measure it off, you know, how many doors he has.
Well, the truth of the matter is, Brian, that, you know, and we kind of forget this even here at CAD-1, even though we sell the software, and that's that Autodesk QTO, or quantity takeoff, actually uses a design review model, a Revit model passed over to design review, to do estimating, to do its counting and costing. So it can be really quite a highly versatile tool if you need it to be.
Yes, yes, it really is, and I've had several clients basically fall in love with using it. Probably a little bit too much for me, but it's been a great tool, and we'll talk about that in there too. And next part, tracking the and importing changes in there, having that ability to track the changes, so we can go back in and see when was that markup done, what did, you know, such and such do at this point, what was marked up here and there, and then you can respond to those with comments and notes within Revit or within AutoCAD. For that matter. So there's a way of going in and tracking all those revisions, and a way for it to be monitored in the software. That way you don't have to go in and spend a bunch of time looking through emails. When did I send that out? When did I get that revision back? Things like that. Accessibility, because now you can use the cloud storage out there to store these files. So if you're in the field, you're like, man, I forgot to bring my documents, or what was that RFI that was sent out the other day, or ASI that I responded to. You can pull that up. You don't have to have the computer there with you. You can pull it up on your iPad or something like that, and review it right there in the field, or look at it and kind of mark up those things in the field. When you're thinking maybe you're you know, you're carpooling with someone, you remember an idea. Well, you can go mark that up in your DWF file, and then open that back up when you get home and make the changes you need. One I added was it's easy to use and learn, and we'll show you how to do that now. That I think that it's one of those where I just invest 20 minutes with a person, just showing them how they can do some navigation, some very simple measures and markups and stuff like that. And it takes me about 20 minutes to do, and then I have my clients actually live working in it. And it's free to them. They don't have to pay anything to get the software or anything like that, so it's no cost to them. I've got other guys in the contractor area, do log homes, where the guy's like, you've got an hour to tell me what's going on here. So I just send him a DWF file. We look at it. He can put it on his. I've seen the guy do it on his phone once, and he's looking at it on his phone. He's sitting there with the chainsaw going, okay, now I see what's going on. Now I'm going to cut a big hole in this log wall. It's kind of interesting, you know, all 4 teeth and a couple missing fingers, but, you know, whatever, it takes it to get it done. So, yeah, and then mobile devices for the field access. So that's just a lot of different things in there. So some things within the software that we're going to look at is, obviously, within Revit, is creating the DWF files, and we'll talk about DWFs and DWFXs in there. And then actually reviewing those markups. So it's all said and done. That's great. You can send it out, but you can also push that data back into Revit so you can review it in there. And then design review, the markups, the measuring. You can obviously just list up for a little bit, but you can see that we can list in there. We can also do 3D walkthroughs and notes within the walkthrough and measure things within the walkthrough. You can cut sections in the walkthrough. That's been incredibly helpful for people that just can't read a set of plans, and you don't want to provide them with a full 3D Revit model. You can just give them a DWF model, and they can open up into design review. And we'll also mention that you actually don't even need design review to open a DWF model, a DWFX model. That's another big handy thing to have. If you have Windows Explorer, you can actually open up a DWF file in Windows Explorer and play with it in there. You won't have all the markup files. You'll have some very standard markups in there. You might not be able to do everything, but you don't necessarily need Design Review to do it. Now, Design Review does give you more for it. You have more tools and options available to you, and it's free. It's like 300 megabytes, I think. I mean, it's really small. 300 kilobytes. It's a pretty darn small file to email to someone or just to give them the link on where it's going over. And then you have the objects, turning objects on and off and tracking up revisions. And whatever someone does to the model, they can goof it up in Design Review. It's not going to affect your Revit model at all. So with that being said, I'm just going to jump right in to a project here. And here we are within Revit, and I've got this house, this project I've been working on in here, and we can see it's in 3D. Spinning around and stuff, but we can go in and save that as a DWF file. And the way we get this done is simply by going over to the application menu, and down in the application menu you can go down to where it says export, and then under export you can go up to save it as a DWF or DWFX file. And maybe you don't know the difference between a DWFX file or one without the X. And it's a Microsoft Exchange file is what the little X means. And that's the same as like a DOCX file or an Excel X file. What it really means is that you can use like a .x file. You could use that file and type in Word without owning Word software. Or use an Excel X file and do changes in there without owning Excel. So same with the DWFX file. You could use it without Design Review and view the file without Design Review. Now, yeah.
Just there's a version of Design Review that Autodesk and Microsoft have collaborated, and there's a version or a flavor of Design Review built into the Microsoft browser.
Yeah. Yeah. Just continuing on with this, we just go in and we select the sheets and views that you want. In here, so I might come in here and I'm going to actually include one that actually has a 3D view, so I'll go down there and select that, but I can go down and add all my sheet files. You can see all my sheet files are already in here. Now, one important thing to point out, when you're working with Design Review and you want people to review stuff, you're going to need, and this is most important, you're going to need to set things onto sheets. If you don't put them on the sheets and you just send out the views, they'll be able to mark them up, but you won't be able to import those changes in there. So you need to have things on sheets. That's most important to set up in there. You could send them just views and stuff. It'll work fine on their end, but we won't be able to import any of those markups. So the markups can only be brought in on sheets, and we'll show that in a second here, that we can put some markups in another view or a 3D view or something like that, but they won't import in. It's only the sheets that are going to have that information. So that's an important step to remember. Put them on sheets. Okay. We can just select all the sheets or whatever the sets you have. So if you've done printing in the past or you sent out DWG files, you can show that same list that you saved previously in there. So it's really quick. You print those documents and then you just go in here and select the same sheets in the set or the views in the set or whatever you need in there. And we can, if I got a sheet set in here that just has the sheets and the 3D view, then I can send that out. So it's easy. I send it to the printer, then I make a DWF file, and I send them both out. And that's what I'll hand off to my client. After we do that, we can save the set and close if we just want to say that, or I'll hit next, and then it'll create that file. I've already created one on here, but so I'll just skip that part, but it's just a matter of saving that. And then you go in and open up Design Review. And here we are in Design Review. And you can see I have a 3D view in here. And I'll talk a little bit about the navigation in a second. That's going to be a little bit different than in Revit. So if you're used to the Revit, the way you navigate in here, I'm going to recommend some other different ways of doing it really quick. Some different tools to look at in here. Well, you can also see that I have different thumbnails up here. So here I have my first view inside of Revit that we can look at. And that you can see that up here in the thumbnails. So I can open up the thumbnails, I can see the first one in here, or I can go to the next sheet and see that I have the sheets in here, and I can go through all my list of all my sheets that are in my set. Here I got the ASI 2 and 1 that are inside here that I had for this project, and some other things in here. So you can see just kind of a standard thing in here. We've already got some revisions that my colleague Tony was preparing for me on here.
Really? Yeah. Tony's building a new place.
Tony's new house. He's coming. He's a tough client to work for, I will tell you. Yeah, so we've got some different things in here. So I'm going to go over the interface really quick. Here we have the home key. We can see that we got the full zoom. We can copy the current view. We've got some other things as far as default animation, stuff like that. The next is markup and measure, and in this markup and measure area, we can go in and copy and paste things. We can write notes and text, and that's what we'll have access to this in a second. So when I go in and put a different note, you can see this part over here, and I can change the font of what I want to do. So I can put in here, like, where are the trees? Maybe they want to see the trees in the first view, so I can point that out. Inside here, we can go in and change the thickness of this. Just get in there and select that to see how thick it is. So you can go in there and start changing all these out to get to different things, different colors. I can change the color of the text in here to be whatever we need to inside the program. So that makes it really nice to have within Revit in this particular view in here. And this is just a raster view, so it's not going to be anything that I can dimension or do anything with in particular. So I can't select any elements in here. I've got other things like I can draw some lines in here. I can add other funny shapes inside, or other tools like I can just add revision clouds, and you can see it kind of just cleans up on itself in here. So it makes it really nice to have these types of tools inside within Revit. So that's the markup in here. I'll do that a little bit more later on. We've got compare sheets, so if we have two different versions, we can compare the changes that are inside the program in here. So if you have two sets of documents and your client wants to see, well, what's changed? Maybe you forgot something. You can go in there and start using the compare sheets and look at, well, what's changed between one sheet and the other, and it'll populate the differences between those two sheets in there. We've got other things like move and rotate, taking snapshots from the particular model. We'll look at some of those in a second. And then resources. We can make discussion groups, create videos. We can bring it into Navisworks. We'll talk, and I'll talk about that right now, why that becomes really powerful. By taking it into Navisworks, now I can provide a client a file or a contractor a file without providing them the Revit file. And they can bring it into Navisworks and view it in there. So with the DWF file, the design review file, I give it to them that way. If I had proprietary stuff I didn't want to share, or something in particular that wasn't necessarily part of the project, I can go in and just share them this information, and they don't have access to the full Revit file. So I know some people out there, they really want to keep stuff close to the chest. Well, this is one way of doing that in there, and you can do it that way. We can also see that we have our cloud technology out here. We can go in and access these design review files, and if I was logged into design or Autodesk 360, we can go in and see I've got a couple of DWF files that are out there that I can pull up at any time, and either on the iPad or on the phone or on the computer or whatever. And it's really nice to have those things out there and compare it. We can see that we have the mobile device out there.
And there's probably, many of you know, there is a mobile app, free mobile app for design review for iPad. I don't know that they have it for Android yet, but yeah, I think they're working on that, but they keep saying that, so I don't know how long it'll be.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those we'll hope and pray, and maybe something will happen one day. This is the main little toolbar right over here. We can see inside, and it's got some different functions. So if this thumbnail thing were to disappear, I actually can go from page to page right here, and that's one of the first things I like showing people, is that you can go all the way to the very front, you can go all the way to the back document, or go through the pages that way. So I really try to encourage people to learn how to use this one, because sometimes you can't find any of these panels around the page. So this becomes really easy and nice to have. And I'll go back to this page here. We can go in here. We can look at that. We have the hand tool, the panning, so we can pan around. We can go in and zoom in and out by using this tool in here, or by rolling my mouse. I don't necessarily have to use that tool. I can roll my mouse to go in and out, or hold the mouse down, hold the middle mouse wheel down, and pan by holding the middle mouse wheel down. But you do have these tools in here. Fit to window, we can use that to fit it to the full screen, and then we can zoom into a particular part to see what's going on in there, and we can do it with that. We've got some other tools like the 2D navigation that's involved in here. I'll get to the 3D in a second. But we can see we have those capabilities in here. Now I'm going to go to my next sheet in here. Actually, I'm going to go to a floor plan in here, and I'll show you that there's some other things that we have inside. One of the other tools we have is this pick tool right here, and by that you can see that this isn't a static flat image. If I start rolling around, you can see that things are starting to turn blue as I move around them. You can see I've got this dimension string, there it goes, showing that in there, and I'm going to start getting the properties of what these things are. And by looking at the properties, I can go in here and just pin this up, and what's nice about that is if I come over and let's say I select this couch, I'm going to get the properties of this particular sofa out here. If I go in and I select the window, I can go in here and select the window, I can get the particular properties of that window. So whatever's been built into Revit, you can see the ID number automatically appears in here, the mark of that number, the type and the type mark are all in there. So we can start listing all these different things in here within Revit. If I had a fire code rating, I would start to see that in here inside my project. You can see the type of phase that's in here. So I get all this different data that's listed inside of my project. So it makes it really nice to have that in here.
Brian?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and maybe you're going to get to it in a minute, so forgive me if I'm jumping ahead.
No, that's quite all right.
Why are we doing a presentation on design review for Revit versus just design review? There's differences. What do you have to think about differently when you convert a Revit file or whatever? That's probably important to note. And again, if you're going to get to that in a bit, let me know.
Actually, the process of actually making the design review file is
pretty much the same.
It's pretty much the same. It's the same way we do anything else, and they're just exporting it. It's kind of the same way. The difference is that you're going to see is that you're going to be leveraging the data out of it a lot better. So how many doors are in the project? How many rooms are in the project? What is the information about these doors, rooms? What are the finishes? You're going to start to see that within the model. We can start picking that apart.
And that's what we wanted to cover was, that's why it can be so powerful with Revit is you have access to any data that's attached to the Revit file without having to have Revit or some external database or something like that to be able to view it.
Correct. Yeah, so having that in there, and it's, again, a lightweight way of providing that information to anybody. They don't need Revit to find out, is this particular door a fire door, or what mark it is. Maybe, the symbol, the particular door symbol was left off, and the guy just wants to know what door is that, so I can fill out my door schedule properly. Well, he can go in and select the door and automatically know, oh, that's mark 14. Brian forgot to put, I forgot to put it on there, but he automatically knows, hey, that's what's going on. Maybe he wants to know what type of host it's hosted to, so we can see it's hosted to a 6.5-inch SIPS panel wall. And so this information is there for them to leverage it. Maybe he wants to know how much area of that is in here. And we can start looking at different areas and stuff. So I can actually go in, if I can select the floor, sometimes it's a little bit harder to do. But we can start seeing what the different floor area is going to be. That's the room. I have to go back in and turn those off. But we can start looking at all the different data. And I guess that's the biggest thing in there is it's as much as you put in, you can start gleaning that from the Revit project. And that's just where a lot of this power comes in here for this stuff. Now I'm going to take us over to actual 3D models where we can see this a little bit more and talk about what's in here. Within the 3D model, we can see now I have access to this model tab over here. And like I was saying earlier, I automatically know there's 24 doors in this project that have been added in here. If I hit the plus key, I can start seeing those in here. I can actually select them from this list just by selecting them right in here and start to see that data, or selecting each individual one in here, and I'll get the information about that individual door. Again, selecting it from the list just by like you would select it from the project browser in Revit. So you have the ability to go in there and get that data that we need outside of Revit itself. So that just becomes the power in here.
Rob asked a question. Maybe get to it, or maybe you want to hold
Sure.
on for a bit. He says, you said DWF are exported small. I have a 153-page set that I exported, and the file size is 386,000 kilobytes, which bogs down Revit when I bring it in. What am I doing wrong?
Actually, not too much. Having it's going to depend upon the size of the model that you're bringing in there. Having 153 pages might be a little bit too much at one time for it to start looking at. I guess what I mean by the files are small, if I were to send someone a full Revit file with all that data, it's extremely big. The more pages you add to the file set, the bigger it's going to get. So it's not like it's going to stay small by having 153 pages, having a lot of markups and stuff. That does start to get the file bigger. But if I were to send you just a 3D view, it's like 500 kilobytes for this model or something like that, half a meg file just on the 3D end. And I guess that's kind of what I meant, is that I can provide you the information. You're going to still have that in here within just the 3D model portion, and it'll be relatively small. There are some other things we can do as far as seeing, well, what kind of markups are being put in there that's making the file bigger. Did you need every single measurement and markup and things like that? Cleaning those types of things up before you import it in. If someone's just measuring something just to find out how big it is and they're not necessarily using it for markups, those are the types of things we can go in and say, hey, did you need that? You can go delete that out of there. Still seems like a pretty big size to be putting in. I'm surprised that at 153 pages it would come in at that size, maybe 3 times that, but that just seems a little bit big. I'd have to find out I'm going to find out a little bit more about the file itself, why that's coming in at such a big size.
Send Brian all 153 pages in a Revit format.
Copy scan.
We'll see what happens.
We can see what happens in there. So yeah, I shouldn't just say that it's going to be small. No, it isn't. It's going to be diminishing returns. But from what I can provide you in the very beginning, as far as just a 3D model or 50 pages or something like that, they tend to stay relatively small. Then when you start getting markups back and forth, they're going to grow and grow and big, a little bit bigger, and we can just start responding about taking some of the markups off or saving them at different stages. So there's other ways of cleaning it up or flattening the thing that we could look at trying to do within that. So hopefully I've answered that question. Now I'm going to go over a little bit of the navigation more within the 3D aspect in here. So here I've got my little orbit command, but it works a little bit different than in Revit. So if you start moving this around, it becomes really a little bit harder to control than you did in Revit. And you can see very quickly, just by moving it up and down, I'm starting to get some really funky things to do. So what I usually tell people is if they're used to the cube, try doing that. And I've got that door selected, and that's why I focused in on that garage door. If I go in and I unselect it, by just going in and unselect nothing, I got nothing selected. Now I come back in here, and I can go to that cube, zoom out in here, or rotate by doing the cube as we're used to. The other thing we have is we can use the turntable down here, which is kind of nice. Or we've got this one here, this turntable here, and I like using this one a little bit better. It's more like Revit Orbit. It tries to keep the orientation correctly. You can see I can still go up and down, but I'm not starting to flip the model over in space. If I come back into this one here, and after a while it starts flipping over, it becomes a little bit harder to control, and you're not necessarily on axis, especially when you're just starting to try to learn the program. I've gotten a lot better at it, but I can pretty easily flip this thing around, and now I'm kind of lost and got my clients lost. So I recommend really using this turntable and coming in and being able to do that. We can still zoom in by zooming in and out in here, and I can pan around inside. Now, one thing I did is I actually exported, as part of the options, the rooms out here, so we can start seeing the room information. So I can actually start selecting rooms and starting to see the room data and stuff like that in here. I would assume with spaces we get the same thing. So if you're exporting with spaces in your project and you want to know for heating this room, cooling this room, other types of things in there, you could at least in the room part, you start looking at the room data and what you're getting out of here, finding out how much volume is inside this. Obviously, this exterior room stuff. But I'm going to go in and turn off those rooms by coming over here and hitting hide. Now those rooms disappear, and I've just got this topo area inside. And you can see I can start selecting the walls, looking at the wall areas, looking at the roofs, inside here. So I've got this other part of the navigation. We've got this view wheel. We can see we can do the object wheel. We've got this one in here for doing zooming in and out. And if we do the full navigation wheel, oh, that's the mini one. And I'll show you the big one. The full navigation wheel is this guy right here. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see him right here. And we've got some useful ones like zoom, orbit, which is a little bit tiresome. Walk I generally don't recommend using because it's a little bit hard. You can kind of get a little bit slow in here. I like this look one that we can do inside, and by the look, you just hold down on your mouse and you can look around, and then with your arrow keys I can point forward on my mouse and go forward. I can go back to go back, and if I should have went to a different view, saved it out, but I can go right into my project and say, hey, let's go in here. We're in a closet, and there I'm inside my building. And I can see I have my roof selected, and I can start seeing around this building and start navigating around in my project. And so I show clients how to do this pretty quickly. Now they can go in and kind of navigate their project themselves and start figuring some things out and looking how poorly I might have put this model together in here. But I can go in and start looking at this. Then I can go in and select something and say, oh, I like this fireplace, and learn more about it. And oh, what's this column doing here, and learn a little bit more, or what's this dresser doing here. So I've got different ways of looking at the model and kind of zooming in and out, doing my different walkthroughs inside. If I want to, I can zoom back out of the model and get back into some kind of a different type of view if I needed to. Now, one other thing that's nice is we can actually go in to the tools in here, and I can move and rotate things. So let's say I want to see this thing, but I don't like something in particular. I can actually go move and rotate, and I can select that roof, and I can move it off and see inside. And this is something we can do with the clients and say, hey, I want to see this roof, or I want to rotate it around a different way. So we could take the individual elements. I'm just going to hit undo here and move that back, but pull those different elements off of there with this little move and rotate symbol. So that becomes a really nice thing to have and move it around. And you're not going to ever change the Revit model by doing this. You're just able to move things around. I can move this tree around to somewhere else and leave it as a snapshot, or tell them, hey, I want to do this project somewhere else, and then take a snapshot and save that particular view. So here I'll just take a snapshot. Maybe I want to look at this particular area and say something in here. Click on that. It'll now snapshot it, and it adds it to the last page of my project now, my markup file, so when I send it back, we can see that inside here. So I'll go back to the original 3D view, and we're back in here. Now from here we also have some other tools. I've got these section tools in here. So with the section tool, I actually can cut a section through the building, and we can see it inside that section. So here I've got that building inside, and I can see the floor plans and everything else within my model. And I might give myself an interesting view and say, hey, this is what the model's cut out. Now, if we want to see those cross sections, I just go in here in the cross section. I can turn that back off or turn it back on and see those cross sections in here. I can go in and select those cross sections, and I can rotate it. So maybe you want to rotate it in one direction or another. You can actually rotate that around within the model, or move it up and down simply by grabbing the gizmo and putting on this. But you have to remember, you have to go in and select those. So if you want this selection thing to hold up, you just pin it into place. Now it's pinned out there, and now I can actually turn that off or turn it on within the model itself. We can also do different sections at the same time, so I can go in and just see what this particular kitchen and nook area is going to be, and this office area is going to be right here. And I can go in and leave some kind of note in 3D and say, hey, office too small or something like that, and then save a snapshot of this shot. Again, these markups won't transfer back over to Revit in the 3D view because this is not a sheet. So for this particular instance, if I was marking up something in here, I'd have to go in and physically make a snapshot of this by going back into the tools and going to snapshot from that view. Now, I also have within here, I've looked at the markups. We only are limited in 3D to just this particular note, but I can also check the length of something. So if I want to know how high the ceiling is, maybe I measure from this beam down to this floor area, and it'll tell me, oh, that's 9 feet and some change in there. inside, so I can look at that and go, oh, okay, I've got the area to look at. Maybe I wanted to see it in the different units. I can go in here and look at the 3D units, and we can see this is set up in feet. Now, normally this is set up in inches, decimal inches of all things. So you have to go in and change this. This is another area I really show clients to do, is to come inside and make sure they're going into this measure and changing the units for the 3D and the 2D so you have those in there correctly, displaying what you want. And you can measure anything you want within Revit. So if I turn off these sections in here, if I want to go in and change and look at the measurement between here and here, I've got that inside, and you can see that the measurements are in there for you to view. And if we rotate around, they still show up. So I still have those measurements. They're still orientating to the way I want. I've got the offices too small in this little area of trees in here. But if I didn't want to see the trees, again, I can go in here and look at the planting. I've got those trees inside. I'm just going to right-click and say hide. Now I've hidden all those things from view. So it's very much like Revit in the fact that you can go in and hide and unhide things by categories. We have all our categories over here, and that's probably another big difference between this and AutoCAD is the ability to go in and start selecting it by the elements that we're used to within Revit. So that makes it really nice. We also have this thing in here where we have the markups. So you can see automatically in here in this markups file, I get to see the markups that are already being made within this file and on the other sheets. So I can see those point clouds we did earlier, the ellipses, and everything else that's been involved in here per the sheet that's inside of Revit. And we can see things are locked or unlocked. We can lock them down or unlock them in the view inside here. So that makes it nice to have. So you got the view list of all the views, the thumbnails, just giving you a preview in here, and the markups with all the markups on each of those sheets inside. Again, I really find this handy with my clients, especially the ability to give them a walkthrough with someone who can't read a set of plans. You give them this, you spend 20 minutes to sit down with them, kind of show them how to do the navigation, this wheel tool, and looking around. Once I hit forward, I'm in the 3D view, and I can say, hey, let's go through a walk through house at a very schematic design, and you can see I'm going through doors and stuff, but I can give them a tour of their house and just show them what's going on in here. And hey, he's got the bathroom inside here, and just look at all the different sizes that are going on within each part of this house, or whatever your project happens to be. And then you can see there's the 9-foot markup. So again, if they want to know what the height is underneath this beam, we can very easily come in here and look at the length and determine here to here and determine that. We also have other tools for area and angles and stuff like that. So let's take a look at those next. I'm going to get over to here to actually a floor plan. Whoops, I'm going up and down. Yeah, if I look at this correctly, I can zoom in and out and then go up and down within my project or pan around easily in here. So I'm going to go down in here and get to my entry floor plan. We can see inside this entry floor plan, I've already got some markups that are inside, and we'll look at how those are done. So we have all our different callouts in here. Maybe you want to bubble something in here and call out that particular window. Should be 11 or something like that. Oops. Call that out in the plan so we can mark up those in there. We've got all these different tools. We've got a way of just going in and just free drawing some stuff or adding some text. I've got this thing, if I want to go in and highlight the particular area, this will start snapping to different parts so I can have it, oops, I'm going to do that all the way, to snap to this here, come over, snap to that edge there. And that's a particularly nice thing, is it's going to allow you to snap in and detect the edges of the walls and doors and things like that inside. And then we have our different highlighter marks and stuff in here. Again, we've got the same length commands that we had before. So if I go in here and I snap from here to here, we can see that we're set up in inches. So I've got those inches in here. So I'm going to go back in here and do the 2D scale, feet and inches. The length is in inches. I'll just set it to feet and decimal inches, fractional inches. And now I can see that this will come in as fractional inches inside my project for measuring whatever I need to. We also have areas. So if I want to know the area of a particular room, I can go in here and select this tool, snap in the corner here, and just follow this all the way around my room, snapping to each edge. In there, when I'm done, I hit Enter, Escape, and now I have that in there, and it's giving me the approximation of 146 square feet. So I have that ability, if I didn't have the rooms inside, that I can go in and select that and say, hey, this is that area of that room. If I want to go and change the color of that, I can go and select it and see in here that I can change that to maybe green or yellow or something else and give myself different colors. Maybe I want to color the bedrooms one color and something else a different color throughout the project. So it's really, really nice to have these particular tools in here. Let's see if I can go to another page. One of the other things I want to show you is that, let's say we have a view that has mixed, I don't think I have one, mixed scales. Yeah, so let's say I have a project that has some mixed scales in here at the different views, and I want to go and do the measure tool. Well, it's going to pick up on the scale of this. So if I come to this wall to measure from here to here, I'm going to get 6.5 inches. Here it is at a different scale. It's going to automatically pick up on the differences in the scale between these two drawings, but give you the same measurement. You don't have to go back in and switch back and forth and determine, oh, what was the scale of this drawing at, or what was the scale of this detail at on either side. It's going to automatically pick that and detect that for you. And that becomes really nice to have. You don't have to switch back for that.
You know, this is, again, this is stuff that your standard out-of-the-box PDF will not let you do.
Yeah. Another nice thing, you're looking at details. Maybe someone forgot to label something. If you're using detail components, I can go in here and select this detail component. It's going to give me the information in here. So if you ever watched any of Brian Mackey's videos on going in and doing detailing, let's say you forget something, you can go in here and just go, oh, I can select that. So let's say I forgot to do this fire reglet. I can go in here and go, oh, that's a J-mold fire reglet. I know I can look that up and get the sizes from it. And that's something really easy to go in and quantify that within my project. So that becomes a really nice tool to have in here. And we can go in and start selecting all these different roof elements in here and look at all the different sizes and everything that's involved for putting this together, even these things. So using those detail elements to determine what the size was for all this becomes really handy to have within our projects.
And Brian, actually, coincidentally, Brian Mackey will be doing another one of his detailing for Revit webinars at 3 o'clock on Thursday, right after Revit Radio.
Ah, there we go. So there we go. Good summary of that. I highly recommend looking at that, and those will help you out in definitely improving your details. If you haven't been doing that, you definitely want to pay attention to that series and getting that. I can't speak highly enough on it. It's the way I start doing my things. But even in these sections in here, if I don't know if I have the right clear height, I can go in here and start measuring inside. By holding the shift down, it locks the ortho, so I'm not trying to figure this out. I'll just hold down shift. I can point to that and say, oh, I'm still in the inches. I'll go in here and change this unit scale for it. Looks like I didn't set that up globally in here when I started off. So I used to do feet and inches. I'm going to do this out as decimally feet for actual inches. There I have my height inside. I can determine my ceiling height. Did I get that built the way I wanted to inside?
Yeah, this really is an excellent program, especially when you consider that it's free. It's very easy to navigate, use, pull a lot of information. So great communication tool with clients or contractors or people in the field, and gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. One other tool I really love is this stamps tool. Hey, you send out. Last thing you want is this guy bidding from it. So you can go in here and create a not for construction stamp. I'll go in here and set that to none so I can see through it. But I can place that on my drawings, put that in there, and just say, hey, look, you're not going to be able to use this for the project, you know. Or we've got other stamps in here, approved. So now when I put this in there, it's got my name, the date, everything's being highlighted for you, what it was approved on. I'm just going to go in. If I don't like the size of it, I can come in here and say, well, it's, you know, this size, and it's only a 0.5 font. I don't need, maybe let's make it a little bit bigger, 2.5 font. Bring that inside. I can post that in here. Again, give it a clear background. Kind of scale this thing around. Oh, come on, it's not scaling around. So yeah, there we go. Push it in. Move it around. Put it in the area in there, and you can see it's got my name, everything logged in as I'm logged in here. So I've got those things in here. In AutoCAD, you can bring in other symbols. So if you've got a way of doing that, and I recommend doing that sometimes for electrical stuff. Maybe I want to send it out. I can set up some symbols in here. I don't have any in this file, but you want to put in, hey, where's all your data plugs going to be? Where are all your, when a ceiling fan in this area? So those are just some nice things that, I'll provide with one of my residential clients or a commercial client. Just say, hey, you've got the ability to drop in more symbols where you want this to be. Maybe it's chairs and tables and how you want things laid out, or cabinetry or bathroom design, so you can put that inside in here. We've got a way of doing links, so if you want to do multiple links, this is more for floor plans, so I'll go to floor plan real quick. Maybe I want to know travel distances and stuff. I can go in here and say, well, from this corner here to this corner here to this window over here, it'll give me the total distance for that. And I can go in there and say, oh, I need it to be a thicker line, so I just select that again and say, okay, I got that in there, and I can start looking at that distance that I'm traveling on that particular line inside. Or maybe I want to change the line type into a little dash line, and I need it to be a different color. So again, you've got all that flexibility of changing that out, so it's not all the same notes over and over again when you're looking at this. Let's see. So now what do I do with this data? I've got it all in here. We can see that we can cut sections in 3D. We can save snapshots. We can mark this up, highlight things, all that inside. We can go in and save that out. So I'll just simply save this file. Make sure I'm doing that. Save as and design review. All right, I'm just going to put this on the desktop so I can get to it pretty quickly. Got it out there. Now I'm going to come back into Revit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that. So I've got the width markups. So I can go in here and select that, and now I'm going to just go into my desktop and grab those width markup files, hit open. Now at this point you can see which sheets do you want to bring in, which markups are you bringing in. Do you need to bring in all of them, or you just want to select a certain thing? This might be one of those where, Rob, if you've got older ones in there, you don't need to bring in every single sheet. You just want to focus in on the sheet that's inside. In this case, I'm just going to select them all, so I've got all those sheets in here. And then put those in here. Now I can see I've got all those revisions where the tree's at inside here. I've got the site plan ones. Because I didn't select them. That's right. Go back in, grab that one more time. I'm trouble selecting everything right now. And just do it. Looks like I'm going to do this manually. So I can go in and see these design review notes. Now that being said, this comes in like a link like everything else would. So under your managed link files, you have Revit CAD. You also have the width markups. You can see those loaded files in here. And we can go in and load them or unload them just like we would any other type of project. So if you've got different versions of the markups on different sheets, you can load that per sheet for that set of markups inside in here and change that the way we would need to. With the markups in Revit, I can select it and I can see the information about that markup. I've got the status in here, so we can see the status. It's a question for review. I've completed it inside. We've got the different notes that we can list with it, and we can go in and select the review history on here. We can see this is from T. Crawford. That's Tony doing this, and then we've got all the different things inside here, unless these are blocked out at the moment for us. Bring to front, send to back. So if you have multiple layers, you can layer those notes on top of each other and kind of change what's inside. I'd say one of the drawbacks where AutoCAD actually has a little bit more of advantage than Revit is the width markups becomes a little bit more handier to have. They've got a little bit more tools to make a little bit more finesse out of it in there. Not saying that Revit is bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems that AutoCAD is a little bit easier inside. You can see there's no other type properties in here to really globally change these. This import symbol is per each one, so we've got different one. Each one's its own for each page type of thing.
It's just kind of the nature of Revit, though.
Yeah,
it's still a heck of a lot better than using hand signals.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that it's being tracked with the document, you're keeping it inside the document, that history with it. It's reviewing who's doing what. It's a nice tool to have. Again, it's a free tool, and it's extremely powerful for the cost by far of what you have inside it. And we can go in and review it, and then send those with markups back out to the original file. The client can mark up our markups or type of thing, or respond to the notes and stuff that we put within each markup in here. As far as this little note file, we can send that back to them and start looking at the go-between between the two.
So, Brian, that's a, I mean, I've always liked this tool. I thought I think it's some great thinking. It provides a lot of versatility for the customers, and the free is always nice. What are some other thoughts you have here?
I guess thoughts. The biggest thing that I fell in love with this tool is I was a pretty diehard user of other products, but I like this in the fact that in about 20 minutes I had this couple I was working with designing their home, and they wanted to see it in 3D, and I'm like, gosh, how do I give them something that's 3D that we can manually walk through, because I didn't want to do a bunch of videos to prepare for them. They didn't have Revit. They weren't going to buy Revit. They just wanted to see their house and do a walkthrough, and they wanted to have something they can email. And I said, well, we'll try this design review thing. So I sent it over, and I spent about 20 minutes with them trying to navigate and show them the navigation and how they can do the tools and stuff. And I thought, well, I don't know how that went. I was kind of curious as to what was going on with that. So in the end, what happened is they called me 2 weeks later and said, guess what we did last week? And I don't know. What'd you do? We met with our family and we showed them our house. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, we got the model, we did a walkthrough, and we showed them our house, and it was great. And I said, you know what? That's wonderful. Because anything where my client can take a project and walk other 3 people through it and they rave about it, I'm sold. I said, that's awesome. So that was kind of the big thing for me, and the ability to go in and say, hey, look, they've got this thing, they can go in and look at it, and it's beautiful, it's nice, lightweight file, they can go and do stuff with it. And they're showing my own clients, and I don't have to market myself. That's awesome. So that was, I guess, Stan, I don't know if I answered your question, but that was the big thing for me, just being able to show them that. I mean, you've got a lot of versatility with the tools, the markups, the measurements. No one has to sit there with a scale and figure it out, or a ruler trying to scale it up and do the math in their head. They've got the tools that automatically give them the information, what a lot of people are looking for. Whether it's a guy in the field, a contractor who just needs some simple stuff, or a client who's looking for things, or, hey, you just plumb forgot to list something, you want to know what it is, you can pull it right out of that file, and they got the information in there.
We've got some comments here from a couple of the folks, and that kind of, first off, Randall, this is Design Review. I know you joined a little late, and this is Autodesk Design Review free tool.
This is Design Review.
This is Design Review. Now, I know that you folks got a couple other comments about Bluebeam and Acrobat and some of the other tools out there. Yes, you're right. PDF is by far more widely used in all of the flavors and formats and viewers that are out there for PDF. It is by far much more widely used. So that being that, this is still, a free tool from Autodesk that has a lot of versatility to it that, granted, in many workflows that firms have established, maybe you don't want to change up. That's fine. We're just showing you what's available today. So let's take a look at that. Yes, this will be recorded, and we will have it on our YouTube channel within the next few days. So let's see.
Got some other questions on there?
Well, we got...
I guess the main thing we put this together for was we did want an AutoCAD and just a general design review, and we've got a lot of response on people wanting to see, well, how does it interact with Revit? How do you use it with Revit? And that was probably the biggest thing that spurred this conversation was, what do you guys see in the Revit realm? What's different between this and AutoCAD, which in some sense isn't a ton, it isn't a lot, but how is this used? And I personally have used this on projects with other clients, so it's been a great tool for that. I think that being said,
well, one of our participants, doesn't have a lot of favorable things to say about DWF, and but it is what it is. It's available. It's a tool. It's available. I know that many people choose to work many different ways nowadays when you're collaborating and working, everything from 2D paper drawing sets to PDFs to some people do like DWFs and Naviswork and just the variety of tools. We had a lot of people who asked to see this, so we're showing it to you today.
Yeah, I think some of you guys said, Bluebeam, funny enough, here's the same thing in Bluebeam, but that's not a free program. So
we are a Bluebeam dealer, and we think Bluebeam is absolutely wonderful, but it isn't a free program.
It isn't a free program. You can go in and do 3D things in Bluebeam or attach those into files. So you do have a lot of versatility. We will do a webinar on Bluebeam in the future, on actually pretty soon, I'm sure, on everything it can show. But it's not a free program, and I think we wanted to show something that what's available, what do people have nowadays that they can use. So it's just a more of what costs you're getting out of this, and how do you want to use this particular program. Blank design review in the DWF files within Revit, and what are they and what can they do. So we'll definitely look at Bluebeam. We're not here to say one is different than the other. I think both have their strengths and weaknesses for that. And that being said, I think we're about done there, Stan.
That's about our time for today. But Rob, do you know right off the hand? Rob asked, will Bluebeam open or use a DWF? And I don't believe it will.
Wow, you know what? I haven't tried. I don't know if it I don't know. I don't know if it will or not. Actually, well, what the heck? Let's see if we can go open one. I doubt it will, but let's go check out. Why not?
Rob, I think that, to answer your question about marking up in Bluebeam versus marking up on Design Review, again, we really like Bluebeam and its capabilities, and it costs a couple $100, but we really like what it does, the way you can visualize things, the way you can mark up, the way it's a highly versatile, very good program, and all things considered, we think it's a great way to go. But as Brian was saying, your client, especially in light commercial homeowners, they may not be willing to go out and spend a couple $100 on a viewer. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Whereas Design Review, as Brian said, you had everything somebody needed to be walking around the house in 20 minutes and showing their family and getting all excited. So there's definitely a place for it.
Yeah, and I think to clarify on that, yes, we could give them the file with Bluebeam, and they can go in, and if they don't have the Bluebeam, they can go in and view the PDF and look at a 3D PDF and do some markups. We could do collaboration together inside there. But if you don't want to buy another, if you, the firm, don't want to buy another piece of software like Bluebeam, then Design Review is a great option for you. If you do, it's still free to the client to interact with a DWF or a PDF file. And I'm doing both right now, just because I've been using both. So it's kind of do I have a preference? I'm not going to talk about my preferences right now.
Yeah. Again, just what's available. Okay. So anyway, folks, thanks very much. We appreciate your coming in today, and we will talk to you soon.
Got a couple other things real quick. We do have some upcoming events.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Stan.
It never really ends with us. We do have Bluebeam training class coming up. It's a half-day class for $149 on October 23rd. We also have our Building Suites camp and our Infrastructure Suites camp coming up on the 29th and 30th. And those are basically one-day workflow camps to show how to put together and really use the various products that are available in the Building Design Suite Premium and the Infrastructure Design Suite Premium. It's going to be a fun day. Lunch and breakfast is provided. You'll have a lot of hands-on time as well as some lecture time, and it's limited to 36 people per day, so get signed up soon. That's $175. Thanks.
All righty.
All right.
Well, hopefully you guys found this useful, and please, if you have any comments or anything, let us know. We love to do webinars, and again, this came from listeners like you who recommended that we do a webinar on this, and so we put one together.
All right. Goodbye now.